The Island. The bayou belonged to the Thibodaux family, same as everything else in this part of Louisiana. That's what my daddy told me when I was a runt, and his daddy told him, going all the way back to great-granddaddy Obadiah, who carved this land out of nothing and made it mean something. The Thibodaux name used to make men stand up straighter and the women look away. Used to mean something in this state. Used to mean power. Now it just meant a rotting plantation house and a family that couldn't figure out how to work the land that used to work itself. I pulled my pirogue through the still water, watching the cypress knees slide past, the Spanish moss hanging like old men's beards from branches that had seen more years than any Thibodaux ever would. The bottle of rye was half empty beside me. I'd already eaten 2 of the catfish I'd caught that morning, fried up in the pan I kept strapped to the bow. Good day. Quiet day. The kind of day where a man could think about the old times without getting too angry about how it all fell apart. Granddaddy Jeremiah used to tell me stories about how it was before the war. Before that bastard Lincoln and his armies came down and ruined everything. He'd sit on the porch of the big house, the porch that was sagging even then, paint peeling, columns cracked, and he'd tell me about the parties, the elegance, the way the whole parish would come to see the Thibodaux spread, the finest cotton operation in 3 counties. We had 147 souls working this land, he'd say, and his eyes would go far away, back to a time when the world made sense. Good workers, treated them well, fed them, clothed them, gave them purpose. Purpose. That's what the darkies never understood. They had purpose under us. They had meaning. And then the Yankees came and set them loose. And what did they do with their freedom? Nothing. Because they didn't know how to do anything without a white man telling them. That's what my daddy Josiah taught me. That's what I knew in my bones to be true. I took another pull from the bottle and watched the light start to fade. I'd been out longer than I meant to. The fish had been biting good, and I'd let the current take me further than usual. But I knew these waters, been running them since I was old enough to hold a pole. There wasn't a channel or sandbar or stand of cypress within 20 miles that I couldn't navigate blind. That's when the fog rolled in. I'd seen fog in the bayou before. It came up off the water sometimes in the early morning, burned off by noon. Nothing to worry about. But this was different. This came from nowhere, thick and white, rolling across the surface of the water like something alive. Within minutes, I couldn't see 10 feet in front of me. Shit. I stopped pulling. No point rushing forward when you couldn't see where you were going. Better to wait it out, let it lift, get my bearings again. But the fog didn't lift. An hour passed, 2. The light faded from gray to black, and still the fog pressed in, so thick I could feel it on my skin, taste it in my mouth. I'd never seen anything like it, never felt so turned around in water I'd known my whole life. I started pulling again, slowly, carefully, feeling for the bottom with each stroke. I had to find solid ground, somewhere to wait out the night. The pirogue was fine for fishing, but I didn't want to spend 8 hours sitting in it fighting off mosquitoes the size of hummingbirds and listening to the gators slide through the dark. I hit something. Not a log, not a sandbar. Solid ground. I pulled closer, and the fog parted just enough to show me a shoreline I didn't recognize. An island. I'd been running these bayous for 30 years. There wasn't an island here. There wasn't anything here but water and cypress, and the occasional hammock of grass that would swallow you to the knee if you were stupid enough to step on it. But here it was, solid ground, rising out of the swamp, covered in old-growth oak and palmetto, like it had always been here, like I'd just never seen it before. I pulled the pirogue onto the shore and stepped out. The island was bigger than I expected. I walked inland, looking for a clearing where I could set up my canvas tent and get a fire going. The trees were thick, but the ground was dry and solid, nothing like the muck I was used to. It was almost like real land, like something that belonged to a civilized world, not out here in the middle of the swamp. I found a clearing maybe 100 yards from the shore, set up my tent, an old army surplus canvas my daddy had left me, stained and patched, but still waterproof after all these years. Then I went looking for firewood. That's when I saw the light. A fire, maybe a quarter-mile deeper into the island, had voices, people talking, laughing, the sound of life in a place where there shouldn't have been any. I thought maybe it was other fishermen, maybe hunters who knew about the island when I didn't. I wasn't happy about sharing the space, but I wasn't worried either. I was Ezekiel Thibodaux. My name still meant something in these parts. I walked toward the light. They saw me before I saw them. I came around a stand of palmettos, and there they were, a village almost. Rough cabins made of cypress and palmetto fronds, arranged in a loose circle around a central fire. A garden I could just make out in the darkness. Chickens in a coop, the smell of food cooking. And people. Black people. Dozens of them. Men and women and children gathered around the fire, eating and talking and living their lives like they belonged here, like they'd always been here. I stopped at the edge of the clearing. One of them saw me, a young man, maybe 20, with arms like tree trunks and eyes that went wide when they landed on my face. He said something I couldn't hear, and suddenly everyone was looking at me. The silence was absolute. I put on my best Thibodaux smile, the one my daddy used when he wanted something from someone who wasn't in a position to refuse. Evening, folks. I didn't mean to intrude. Got lost in the fog, found this island. Mind if I share your fire for the young man hit me before I could finish the sentence. I woke up in chains. My head was pounding. My jaw felt like it had been kicked by a mule. I was lying on a dirt floor in one of the cabins, and my wrists were shackled to a post behind me, the iron biting into my skin. I pulled against the chains, testing them. Solid. Old, but solid. "The hell is this?" I shouted. "You can't do this. Do you know who I am?" The door opened. An old man stepped in, older than anyone I'd ever seen, 90 if he was a day, his face a map of wrinkles, his hair white as cotton, his back bent with the weight of years, but his eyes were sharp, clear, looking at me like he could see right through to the back of my skull. "I know who you are," he said. His voice was like gravel and honey, rough and smooth at the same time. "I know that name, Thibodaux." "Then you know you need to let me go, right now, before you what?" The old man sat down on a stool across from me, moving slow, moving careful, like every motion cost him something. "Before you call the paddy rollers, before you bring the overseer and his whip." "The hell are you talking about? They ain't been overseers in 60 years. The old man's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "I mean the war, the emancipation." I spat the word like the curse it was. "Lincoln freed you people in 1863. Not that it did anybody any good. Y'all been running around loose ever since, and look what it got you. Hiding on an island in the middle of nowhere, living like animals." The old man stared at me for a long moment. "You're lying." "I ain't lying. The war ended 60 years ago. The Confederacy lost. The slaves were freed." I laughed even though it hurt my jaw. "Worst thing that ever happened to this country, if you ask me. But it happened. You could walk right off this land and nobody would chain you up. Though why you'd want to, I couldn't say. Y'all clearly ain't figured out how to live in the real world." The old man stood up, walked to the door, stood there for a long moment, his back to me, his shoulders rising and falling with slow breaths. My name is Samuel, he said quietly. Samuel Thibodaux. The name hit me like a fist. That's my name. That's my family's name. It was my name before it was yours. He turned to look at me. Your great-granddaddy Obadiah gave it to me, the way he gave it to all of us. We didn't have names when we came off the ship, so he gave us his, like we were dogs, like we were property. I pulled against the chains. You were property, that's just a fact. I was born on your family's plantation, 1835. I was there when your granddaddy Jeremiah was born. I was there when your daddy Josiah was born. I was there for all of it. He walked closer, stood over me. His eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. I was there when Obadiah took my mother to the big house. When she came back, she couldn't look anybody in the eye, not for weeks. And 9 months later, she had a baby that came out lighter than it should have been. And everyone knew. Nobody said a word, because what was there to say? I stared at him. I was there when Jeremiah sold my brother to a man from Mississippi. My brother was 12. I never saw him again. I was there when Josiah whipped a man to death for looking at a white woman. Took him 3 days to die. I was there for all of it. All the glory your family's so proud of. He knelt down, bringing his face level with mine. And you tell me we're free now, that we could walk off this land and no one would hurt us. He shook his head slowly. We've been free since we got here. We left before your war, took our families and ran. We found this place and we built something your kind could never touch. Then let me go. If you're so free, let me go. Samuel stood up, walked to the door again. We'll see, he said. We'll see what's to be done with you. They came for me that night, not to kill me, not yet. Samuel came with 2 younger men, and they held me down while the old man knelt beside me and blew something in my face, a powder, fine and gray, that tasted like nothing and smelled like something burning. What the hell? The world dissolved. I was on a ship, not standing on it, lying in it, crushed between bodies. So many bodies packed so tight I couldn't move my arms or turn my head. The smell was beyond anything I'd ever experienced. Shit and piss and vomit and death all mixed together in a heat so thick it felt solid. Someone was crying. Someone was praying in a language I didn't understand. Someone was dead beside me, had been dead for days, but there was nowhere to move the body, so it just lay there rotting, while the ship rocked and the chains bit into my wrists. I tried to scream. No sound came out. I was on a platform. Men in fine clothes were pointing at me, calling out numbers. A woman beside me was screaming, reaching for a child that another man was carrying away. I tried to help her, tried to move, but my hands were bound and my feet were chained, and all I could do was watch as the child disappeared into the crowd. The woman's screams turned to sobs as a man with a whip struck her across the face and told her to shut up. The numbers kept climbing. Sold. I was in a field. The sun was a hammer. The cotton stretched to the horizon in every direction, an endless sea of white bowls that had to be picked by hand, and my hands were bleeding. My back was screaming, and the overseer was walking down the row, his whip coiled at his belt, his eyes looking for anyone that was slowing down. I knew his face. It was my grandfather's face, Jeremiah Thibodaux, younger than I'd seen him, but unmistakable. He stopped beside a woman who was bent double, trying to catch her breath. "Did I say you could rest?" "Please, massa, I just need a minute." The whip came down. I was in the big house. I was a woman. I was in a bedroom I recognized. My great-granddaddy's bedroom. The one that was always locked when I was a boy. The one nobody ever talked about. And Obadiah was there. And he was... I tried to look away. I couldn't. When it was over, I saw myself in the mirror, a young woman's face, brown skin, eyes that had died while the body kept living. And somewhere in those eyes, I saw myself, my real self, the Thibodaux bloodline I'd never been told about. I was at a tree. A man was hanging from it, his feet dangling 3 feet off the ground, and he was alive, choking, his hands scrabbling at the rope around his neck. A crowd of white men stood there around the tree, laughing, drinking, watching him die like it was entertainment. I saw Father in that crowd, Josiah, young and strong and smiling. The man in the tree took 20 minutes to die. They took photographs. I came back to myself all at once, gasping, vomiting, my body shaking so hard the chains rattled against the post. Samuel was sitting across from me, watching, waiting. How long? I managed. How long was I? A few hours. But you lived years, didn't you? Lifetimes. I couldn't speak. I could feel the ship rocking, the cotton bolls cutting my fingers, the rope around my neck, the weight of a body on top of me that I couldn't push away. That's what your glory cost, Samuel said quietly. That's what the Thibodaux name is built on. You wanted to know who you are. Now, you know. I looked at him. He looked back, and for the first time in my life I understood. Not forgiveness. The hate was still there, baked into my bones, too deep to burn out in one night. But I understood. I knew what the stories really meant. I knew what my grandfather's smile had hidden. I knew what my great-grandfather had done in that locked bedroom. I knew what I was descended from. Please, I said. The word came out broken. I'd never said please to a black man in my life. Please, let me go. Samuel was quiet for a long time. You told us we were free, he said finally, that the war had ended, that we could walk off this island and no one would hurt us. It's true. I swear it's true. Maybe it is. He stood up. But how can we know? How can we trust a Thibodaux? Your family has been lying to us for 200 years. Why would you tell the truth now? I've got no reason to lie. I just want to go home. And if we let you go, if you go back to the world and tell people about this island, tell them where we are. I won't. I swear I won't. Samuel shook his head. We have children here, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, generations born on this island who have never seen a white man, never known what your people are capable of. They've never been slaves, never felt the whip, never been sold away from their mothers. He walked to the door. We can't risk it. We can't risk them. Wait! I pulled against the chains. You said you'd set me free. You said... Samuel paused at the door, turned back to look at me. We will set you free, he said, the way so many of our ancestors were set free, relieved of the burden of their bodies, released from this world of suffering. No, that's not what you meant. That's not... Your soul is wicked, Ezekiel Thibodaux. But even wicked souls deserve freedom. We're going to free this world of your ignorance. Free your bloodline from its curse. Set you free, the only way that matters. He walked out. I screamed after him, but nobody came. They came for me at dawn. 6 men, young and strong, their faces hard with purpose. They unlocked the chains from the post, but left them on my wrists, dragged me out of the cabin and into the morning light, where the whole community had gathered. Men, women, children, old and young, all of them watching me with eyes that held no hate, no anger, no satisfaction. Just resolve. just the grim determination of people doing what had to be done. Samuel stood at the front of the crowd. Beside him was a pine box, simple, rough-hewn, big enough for a man. "No," I whispered. "No, please, you can't." They lifted me like I weighed nothing, carried me to the box, dropped me in. The wood was rough against my back. The space was tight. My shoulders touched both sides, and when I lifted my head, I could see the lid waiting in one of the men's hands. "Please!" I was screaming now, crying. "Please, I'll do anything. I'll never tell anyone. I'll forget this place exists. Please, please!" Samuel stepped forward, looked down at me. "Your family took everything from us," he said. "Our names, our bodies, our children, our lives. And you're proud of it. You sit in your boat and drink your whiskey and dream of the days when you could do it again." "I didn't. I never—" "You are your family, Ezekiel Thibodaux. You are everything they made you, and we are setting you free." The lid came down. Darkness. "No, no, you said you'd let me go. You said—" The first nail drove home. I screamed, pounded against the wood with my chained hands, felt the box shift as they lifted it, carried it somewhere, set it down. I heard digging, shovels biting into the earth, the muffled voices of men working. Then the box tilted, dropped. I hit the bottom of the hole with a thud that knocked the wind out of me. Dirt cascaded onto the lid, a sound like rain, like the end of everything. More dirt, more weight, the wood creaking under the pressure. And my mind went back to the ship, the hold, the bodies pressed so tight I couldn't breathe, the heat, the stink, the darkness that went on forever. I was there again. I was in the ship, chained and helpless, surrounded by the dying and the dead. This is what they felt. This is what my family did to them. This is what I am. I wet myself, felt the warmth spread across my legs, mixing with the sweat and the tears. The air was going thin. Each breath came harder than the last. My chest heaved, my lungs burned. More dirt on the lid. The sound was fading now, muffled by the weight of the earth. The darkness was absolute. I thought of my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, all the Thibodaux men who had lived and died and never paid for what they'd done. I was paying now. I was paying for all of them. The last of the air slipped away. My chest stopped heaving. The darkness pressed in from every direction, and I couldn't tell anymore if my eyes were open or closed. If I was in a box, or a ship, or somewhere else entirely. My heart slowed, my thoughts scattered. In somewhere far above me, the people of the island were already walking away, already going back to their lives, their children, their freedom. They would walk over my grave tomorrow and not think of me. My name would fade from memory. The Thibodaux legacy would end here, in an unmarked hole on an island that didn't exist, and the world would continue without me. The darkness swallowed everything, and Ezekiel Thibodaux was finally free.